form and character will be that will be restricted by covenant. I agree with the owner that he needs to have some flexibility to be creative and not have two cookie-cutter homes placed there. But I also know that there are neighbors who are going to be curious about what will be constructed, and ultimately this council will get the emails and phone calls depending on what goes in there. So I'd like that satisfaction when the public hearing comes. I appreciate the level of detail we were presented with. I think that the proponent has done an excellent job in providing council with some assurance about what we would get here. And I also appreciate the efforts toward deconstruction and reuse of the existing house and Interguide 82. I think that those are certainly some aspirational targets, and I'm pleased to see that the property owner, the proponent, is prepared to make that kind of investment. So thank you very much.
Councillor Brownell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think the owner heard us back in 2012 as we tried to say there wasn't enough detail for us to really move the application forward. So tonight, a far better presentation on the amount of detail. I'm very concerned about the slopes, and I understand about Levelton signing off and things like that, so I was pleased with some of the extra information we provided. I do believe a street light in that area is definitely needed. Some of the areas we hear along the Cutover Bay is so dark, and it's very dark for cyclists as well. So I think that when we go on to public hearing, it would be helpful to see what kind of design, like even some building schemes, or because I can tell you, I have a lot of calls about, I think it's across the street, there's a very large house on the slope. And so I think the neighbors would like to kind of see, I don't want cookie cutter exactly a mirrored image of the same house, but something unique so that it will be fit into the neighborhood. And I do thank the applicant for clarifying about the heat pumps and deconstruction and trying to use as much of the old building on site as possible. And I'm willing to send this on to public hearing to serve that one. Thanks.
I do support the application that we do have before us, and I have to say I do envy the new owners that will be living in these homes. And we councillors are peculiar a lot sometimes, and I think we all fall into it. Sometimes we ask for reports, whether it's on traffic, the geotech, and when they come, we really don't believe what they're telling us sometimes, but we do have to accept it when we ask for it. And having said that, council, all in favor? Against? Carried. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This next item is 4264 Mankelsop Road. It's a subdivision and ARR subdivision application. The report of the Director of Planning is recommending that Council forward the application to subdivide within the Agricultural Land Reserve to create one additional lot, that the application be forwarded to the Agricultural Land Commission with a recommendation for approval.
Council, any questions? Would the applicant please come forward?
Mr. Chair, members of Council, my name is Dean Strongathorn. I've been assisting the owner of the property, Mr. Ken Patterson, who I would also like to introduce at the back. You don't see him, but Mr. Ken Patterson Sr. is here, who has owned the property for since the 60s. And his son Dave is here also, who built the house, which is the subject of a subdivision application, who built the house in the late 70s with his father. And also with us tonight is Dave's wife Carrie and Ken's daughter Gail. Once again, I would certainly subscribe to good councillor's comment about with respect to the planner's staff report. I think it very thoroughly outlines what the issue is all about. It is a very simple application with respect to it is not a rezoning application. There are no variances requested, and there are no buildings involved. So I do have a very short PowerPoint presentation for those of council who were not unable to see the property. So I've got a few photographs for you, maybe able to assist you. And being very mindful of time, I will go through them relatively quickly if I can get up on the screen. Oh, there it is. Oh, now I just got to figure out how to turn it on. That's it. that it? Slide two?
The top slide.
Oh, which one's the slope? I have no idea. I think that's slightly better, isn't it? Yeah. Pardon my,
Your time is half up.
I know. I don't know. Oh, there's slightly short. Oops. Sorry about this. What have I done? My apologies. My 5 minutes is almost expired. Thank you. So once again, I'll go through these very quickly, and certainly if you have any questions after that, I'd be more than pleased to answer them. And again, the location of it is on the Blenkinsop Valley. To the right-hand side is Blenkinsop Road, and you can see it in the context of the valley. This is the actual application property, and you can see the nursery immediately to the north. The two bluish circles are the existing 2 homes. The original farm home was actually the circle in the middle, and Dave's house is the house that's closest to Blenkinsop Road. And as I say, that house was built in the late 70s by Dave, who has lived there for 35 years and will continue to live there. Purpose of the application is to subdivide the property under the conditions of the subdivision for a family member, and I think in terms of this particular instance, in this particular example, I think this really kind of exemplifies the rationale for that particular section of the Act. The primary objective is, one, to address family matters, to subdivide the second house, to provide a separate parcel for Dave. And the other objective, certainly for Mr. Patterson, who has long been in the farming community, both here in Saanich, as well as actually before that up Island. He has been in very much farmland, and farming has been very much part of his ethic, and certainly keeping the balance of the property whole is very much his central objective. Just carrying on, you can see then the applications to subdivide under that section of the Act, which allows for a minimum subdivision of 2,500 square meters. That red outline is in fact the minimum lot size, which will then allow for the balance of the land, which is approximately 8 acres. The balance of the land will be left whole, and it will allow for the subdivision, as I say, for Mr. Dave Patterson. In support of the application, and again, this is outlined in the staff's report, the land will remain in the ALR. There's no request for removal. It is in the ALR and will have to be referred to the Land Commission. There will be no changes to the development, what you see and what's been there basically for in excess of 35 years. It meets the subdivision for relative requirements of the Local Government Act. I didn't get into it, but certainly the staff report went into the section of the OCP with respect to the policy that supports the application. We did attend the Blenkinsop Valley Neighborhood Association, or Community Association, who supports the application, and I do believe actually there are also a couple of letters on file in your submission from neighbors supporting the application. And finally, I would also confirm the Director of Planning's recommendation with respect to the restrictive covenant pertaining to the number of houses on the remaining of the parent parcel, I'll say. And really with that, I guess I should. This is Mr. Dave Patterson's house, built in, let's say, the late 70s. That's taken from the south side, looking towards the north. That is looking from the north, looking back. This is actually looking down towards the Blenkinsop Valley into Lochside Trail and Lochside Lake, Blenkinsop Lake beyond. This is the original farmhouse. There's a couple of dates, not really quite sure when it was built. There's a couple of different dates, but again, that was the original farmhouse, more or less in the middle of the property. And finally, that's actually taken from Ken's Steps, looking down once again towards the west, but on the other half of the property. And basically, that's it. I think it's a very simple application, and I'd be more than pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Strongthorn. I appreciate your presentation and brief history on how we came to this point. Just a couple of questions, particularly with respect to the servicing requirements. So as we're really just formalizing what has existed on this property for a number of years, decades, the easement that is referenced here with respect to the driveway, hydro, phone cable, those are already in place. We're talking about creating an easement to formalize what's already.
That's correct. Yes, everything is in place.
And the same is true for septic, is that correct?
Well, yes, we had to, because it's being subdivided, we actually had to prove septic, so it's been through that whole process with we had to, there already is a septic field, but we had to provide it, again, because it is a subdivision, a secondary field, so that process has all been through, and there is actually a letter on file from VHA, or Island Health, I should say, with respect to that approval.
Okay, and so just to clarify, there will be a creation of a separate septic field?
No, there are two septic
They already
fields.
exist.
It's just that when you do a subdivision, you have to provide a secondary field as a condition of subdivision.
Right, okay.
And so there's no new septic fields going in, but it has been, had to meet the regulatory requirements. It has been, the perk tests have been done in support of a secondary field.
Right, okay, thank you. My last question is just to confirm with our Director of Planning. What's before us this evening is for consideration, endorsement or not, to be referred to the Land Commission. If the Land Commission approves it, then falls to our subdivision approving officer to create the subdivision, is that correct?
That would be correct. If you supported it this evening, that would be the last time you would see it, assuming the ALC approves it, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Any members of the public wish to speak to this item, please come forward. Thank you. Council. Councilor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the recommendation.
Second?
And just very briefly, I just want to note the applicant's representative indicated support for a recommendation that council will send to the approving officer for a covenant to be registered limiting one unit on each of the subdivided properties. Thank you.
Councilor Bryce.
This request is so in keeping with our goals to encourage and maintain our agricultural viable community. The 6 points that were listed by Mr. Strongatharm, I think, hit all the notes for me, and I'm very delighted to support this.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too am very supportive of this. Farming, as we know, is challenging at the best of times. I think this family has shown such a strong farming background, and to provide an actually titled lot for the son that's lived there for many, many years makes perfect sense to me. I think we'll probably see a few more of these. We've had one in the past, and I just think that this just makes the farming continue. So I'm very supportive of sending this off to the ALC. Thank you.
Councilor Hayes.
Thank you very much, through the Chair. Like my colleagues, I'm of the same mind. I was pleased to see this application come forward because it's, in a sense, at least housekeeping what's already existing there. My compliments to the family for their long-term support for agriculture, and I hope that continues for many years. Thank you.
Councilor Sanders.
I was debating to speak or not, because I'm going to say yes, the same as everybody else. I think this is an excellent tradition, and Lincoln Valley is almost unscathed, and I think this is wonderful. This will continue on and leave an opportunity for a family member to continue.
Councilor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I regrettably don't have a lot to add, other than I will not miss the opportunity to thank the family for their dedication to farming and their clear intention to preserve the property for that intent, and for agreeing to the covenant to ensure that this would be the extent of subdivision of the property. I am pleased to see this formalized. I'm happy to endorse this for the Land Commission, and I'm pleased again and grateful to the family for their commitment to farming.
Council. All in favor? Against? Carried. Madam Clerk. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This next item is 3965 Shelburne Street. It's a development permit amendment. The report of the Director of Planning is recommending that Council approve the development permit amendment to provide for the construction of an arbor to provide a sunshade over the existing patio area. Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come forward? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Amber Reese, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kensington. We're a seniors community located in on Shelburne. And so I'm actually addressing you on behalf of Russ Berry, the owner and operator of Interactive Construction, who submitted the application. And I'm under the impression that in front of you, you do have our application. And what we're asking for is a 4-post sunshade arbor to be constructed on our existing patio. And the board documentation on page 7, figure 5, you do have a rendering of the proposed 4-post arbor. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Any members of the public wish to speak to this item? Please come forward. Thank you. Council. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe that went a little too fast.
Don't blink, don't blink.
Some good applications just don't take a lot of words to pass. So item 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This next item is 40 Lurleen Avenue. It's a development permit and rezoning application. The report of the Director of Planning is recommending that Council approve the application to rezone to RD1, which is 2-family dwelling, to expand a legal non-conforming duplex. There will also be registration of covenant required before ratification of the development permit and approval of the zoning application. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions? Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going into the planner, I've got a few questions. The driveway situation, what ensures that there's clearance for the duplex on the rear of the property, that is clear on the front? Does that make any sense?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm also having a hard time hearing you over the fan.
Well, the diagrams show the parking on the front and these grass driveway through the back, but I'm just wondering about the conflict that the rear unit would have with people in the front unit parking and walking that to the back.
We would not proposing that we would secure a covenant to that effect. Obviously, the partners that own the property, we assume, would regulate that themselves.
Okay, thank you. I would assume that too. The other question then too is also there's the front unit and the rear unit. So does this mean that the landscape features at the back belong entirely to the rear unit?
And we need the applicant to clarify exactly how they see dividing the outdoor space, and they can do that as part of their presentation.
Thank you. And there was a comment from a letter which has said about the kitchen coming out of the existing duplex, and how would we stop that going back in?
Obviously, when we issue occupancy, we would ensure that there are only 2 kitchens in the entire building itself. If subsequently somebody wished to install it, it would be no different than anywhere within the District of Saanich complaint driven.
Okay, thank you. And does this area fall into the secondary suite area?
Yes, it does, but secondary suites are not permitted within duplexes.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the planner, to get to Built Green Gold, the equivalency is Intergate 82, is it not?
Yes, I believe it is.
So we have here a suggestion they only are going to Intergate 80?
That would be correct, and it's slightly better than the BC Building Code, but just barely.
Barely, that's what I thought. Exactly. Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council and members of staff. I'm the applicant and owner, Kevin Dunmore of 40 Lurleen. The other owner is my wife, Barbara Jean. The proposal is to rezone from an RS6 single family to RD1, which is two-family dwelling, and expand an existing legal non-conforming duplex, which was built legally and permitted in signage in 1954, 60 years ago. So the new attached dwelling is to the rear of the existing unit, and the entire existing dwelling becomes the other unit. So we'd have two separate units. So if I can move. So this is a landscape schematic which shows, albeit small, but the existing square block at the front is the existing unit, which is the up-down duplex. It's got daylight frontage, it's single story to the rear. It has existing 2 parking spaces, and we have been residents for the last 8 years, have actually renovated and improved the whole property. So it now has energy efficient windows, heat pumps on both levels. We re-landscaped the whole yard, which originally only had 2 trees and nothing else, just barren land. The intent of building the additional unit is that we can live and retire and stay in the neighbourhood, and that the front unit will become a rental unit. The new unit is single story, there's no basement, it's 1 level, it has adaptable housing features, it's open plan. It's something that I'm looking forward to building and living in, as I say, for the future. So that's our commitment to the neighbourhood. We've always tried to improve what we've owned, and as I say, we've been here 8 years. Previously it was a tenanted accommodation. We've lived in it with no tenants, and as I say, for the future, we'll be the owners in the rear with a tenanted dwelling in the front. In terms of the change in the zoning to RD1, the new dwelling conforms to all aspects of RD1 zoning, other than lot width. It has the lot area, it meets the minimum requirement, but the lot width, based on the age of these properties, the lots are generally that much smaller than modern day requirements. So the lot width is approximately 15 metres plus. The requirement is 20, so we ask for a variance on the 5 metres. And the other variance requirement is for the existing building, not the new. So the existing building is within a 10-foot setback on the east side, as it's 60 years old. And the history of the zoning is somewhat checkered. How it arrived at the current 3-foot setback, we don't know. Those are the only variances. And as I say, all of the requirements are met. In the rear, the setback, which is a minimum requirement of 34 feet, we actually have 50 feet. The existing landscape and trees are supplemented. There's no removal of trees. There's no regrading of the current contours of the land. The new 2-car parking spaces are going to be developed on the west side, and the drivable surfaces will be aquastone or permeable paving, which we've actually used on the existing property as a sidewalk, as an experiment, and we found it adequately suitable. The new property in terms of construction is a slab on grade, single story, high ceilings. It'll have one heat pump with 2 split duct outlets, and there will be large energy efficient windows which allow through cooling from one side of the building to the other. In terms of the streetscape and changes to the streetscape, which is always a consideration, with the new addition behind the existing, our property is in the center at the top, and the only change is because of graded land. The new addition is seen because of that change in grading. From the street, the land slopes gently upwards. So you do see to one side, and the top roof line. And in terms of the back of the property, as you can see, the lower sections show the property on our east side and a rear view of the new addition. So in terms of the overall look, if we look at the top views, the view on the left-hand side is the existing building with the red and yellow doors. The aquamarine blue strip to the left-hand side is the new addition. There's a feature wall, because there was a concern about designating access, what was the differential between the front and the rear units, so we've provided that as an aquamarine colour. If you then move across on the top right, the existing square box is the existing unit. Oh, sorry, the square box to the right-hand side, and the new single-story unit to the rear. And the other views you can see are generally various views from the east and west side. So during the planning of the building, which we designed ourselves, we actually went to Green City and had them assess the energy efficiency ratings in terms of wall, roof, and under slab insulation. And we feel we can meet, as we proposed, the minimum requirement of the Energuide R80. The likelihood is with a heat pump system it will be in excess of 80. And we've also looked at solar, and we will introduce pre-ducting for future solar heating. I think at this point in time it wasn't deemed cost effective, but I'm sure things will change with the future. So in conclusion, we feel that it's an efficient use of space, it utilises existing infrastructure, it's a good location for the residents and tenants in terms of services, public transit, schools, parks and trails. It improves the housing stock without significantly impacting the neighbourhood. And of course it increases contribution to Sandwich's tax base. We've been in discussion with neighbours. We presented this to the chair of the Gorge Chillicum Community Association, who had our support, and we've been through the design or advisory design committee. We made recommendations which we've adopted and resubmitted our planning application. In conclusion, I'd like to thank the planners. I feel the report is very fair and well presented, and we request council approve. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councillor Dermott. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it's for you to the applicant. You probably heard the planner respond to my question. Energuide 80 is barely over code as it exists right now. For a number of years now, in response to climate change needs and other things, Council has been asking applicants that come before us to meet a minimum of built green gold, which are equivalent, which the Energuide equivalent is Energuide 82, roughly. If this were to go to a public hearing, would you be ready to commit to accomplishing that level of energy efficiency?
I think I'd obviously review the request. If you wanted my immediate response, yes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions I asked the planner. One is the driveway access. How will you delineate to ensure that there's no blocking of traffic to the back unit from the front unit?
Well, there is ample space for a start, so the two spaces existing wouldn't encroach on the planned driveway to the rear.
No, I can see that,
So,
but...
as we're the resident owner, and the tenants will be basically reviewed and accepted by ourselves, so that will be outlined in discussion. In terms of a physical barrier, we don't intend to put a physical barrier.
Okay, I just can see where that width that you could end up with these cars parked in the access, but just a question I asked.
Right.
The same with the yard space, then will it be delineated that the rear unit, the new unit will...
Well, there is a side strip in terms of available space, so the side strip on the east side and the frontage, typically for the front end, and then the west side and the majority of the rear space will be for the back.
Okay, so then that raises a question, the patio area, what unit does the patio area belong to?
So the patio area, which is this area that you see here,
Yes,
which is for the front unit. And this was based on recommendations from advisory design.
I saw that in this advisory design panel. My other concern about that, that's very close to the property next door, and that's their short side close to the,
Which is where we currently have, our patio.
you currently have a patio that close.
We have a covered, the existing property has a covered patio for the full width of the rear of the unit. So we're immediately attached to our neighbor in terms of proximity.
Okay, so on the GIS that I'm looking at, do you have a deck on the back of your house or something like that, existing now?
It's like, you've got the benefit of me there, but it will show.
Yes,
It isn't a deck, it's a canopy.
okay, so
There was
that,
a deck prior which was removed because it had fallen on hard times, and there is a canopy on the rear of the property, which is a sunshade.
so there's,